Hi guys, we're going to take a look at integers, and one of the things that's a little bit confusing when you first start with integers is they're disguised. And so until you can take those disguises off, sometimes they are really confusing. So we're going to go ahead and use the rule cards that I passed out to you last week. Here's the same sign, add and keep, and then the different sign subtract rule, and I have them written up here on the board. So you might get these cards out when you're working with these problems, and I think that'll help a lot. Okay, so first of all, we're going to look at this problem right here, and it says -5 plus -4. And so one of the first things I want to do is I'm going to cover up, after the 5, I'm going to cover up everything that's on the right side. So I'm going to move the -5 over here, and I'm going to separate these two numbers. This number, I can see that it is actually a negative, and so I'm going to put an N above it to stand for a negative number. Okay, now I'm going to take this sheet off, and I'm going to cover up from the 5 everything to the left. So I'm going to go to the 5, cover it up, and now on this side, I'm going to go ahead and separate these two numbers pretty far apart, because I think that really helps a lot. So this number has a plus and a minus and parentheses. The reason that they can't have a plus and a minus together in original problem, like this, if they don't have the parentheses, you're not supposed to have two math operation signs bumped up next to each other. And so they put this parentheses to separate the plus and the minus. And that's it. So now, really, this number says plus -4. Well, that's confusing. Is it positive or is it negative? It's got both signs. Well, the negative is going to win over the positive. So whenever you see a plus and a minus in front of the same number, it's really negative. So now I'm going to take the disguise off. I'm going to take the plus sign away because we said it's really negative. And I'm also going to take the parentheses off. So now I can see the numbers for what they are. The 5 is negative and the 4 is negative. So they're both the same sign, N and N. They're both negative. So I'm going to go to my rule that says same sign, add. So I'm going to add 5 and 4, that's 9. And then my rule says that I'm going to keep the same sign. So I'm going to keep the negative sign, and that's it. It's just -9. Let's take a look at another one. Let's say that you've got -7 plus -3. Okay. Let's do the same thing. After the 7, I'm going to cover up everything so I can't see it. So I'm going to move the 7 over here with the negative sign in front of it. Looks just the same. I can see that 7 is negative, so I'm going to write an N above it. Now I'm going to cover up the 7 and everything that's to the left, and I'm going to write the plus -3. You would say plus a -3. And now, I just said that if you see a plus and a minus in front of the same number, the minus is going to win. So this number is really a negative. So I can take the plus away, and I can take the parentheses away. And this is how I think about it. So this is actually a -3. And so I'm going to write an N above it. So you can see that they're both negative, so they're the same sign. So I'm going to use my same sign rule. So same sign, add. So I'm going to add 7 and 3. That's 10. And then it says keep. And I'm going to keep the same sign, which was on both of those numbers. So it's -10. Let's look at another one. Okay, on this one, let's say you have -6 plus a -8. All right, so the 6, I'm going to move it to this side. It's negative, and now I'm going to separate this to the plus a -8, like that. I just drop this down. So again, this number, it's got that same disguise on it. So I'm going to take off the positive, and I'm going to take the parentheses away, because the negative sign won again. So my 6 over here is negative, and my 8 on this side, it's negative also. So they're the same sign. So it says same sign, add, so that's going to be 14. And then I'm going to keep the same sign, which is a negative. Okay, let's take a look at another one. You guys are probably starting to get used to this one now. So I'm going to move the negative 10 over here, and then I'm going to put the plus negative 2. Well, the last couple of problems have had this one, so I know that the negative is going to win. So this number is actually a negative 2. So I can take all this disguise off. And so now I have a negative 10. So I'm going to put an N here to stand for negative. And I have a negative 2. I'm going to put an N there because the sign is also negative. They're both the same sign, so I'm going to add them. I'm going to follow this rule here. That's 12. And then it says I'm going to keep the same sign. They're both negative, and I'm going to keep the negative. And that's that one. Okay, so hopefully this is getting a little bit easier. Let's take a look at another one. Okay, so at the 2, I'm going to separate this. So this one is negative 2. And then now I'm going to cover my 2 up, and I've got plus 11. Okay, well this number is negative. So I'm going to write an N to stand for negative. And this number, well, that's easier. This one's positive. So I can see that. So it's not even disguised. But they're different signs. This one's negative and this one's positive. So now I've got to go to my different signs rule. So it says different signs subtract, and I'm going to subtract 2 and 11, or 11 and 2, either way, and I'm going to get 9. And then it says keep the sign of the bigger number. So which one of these numbers is bigger, 2 or 11? If you don't think about the signs on them. 11 is bigger, and it's got a positive, and so I'm going to move the positive sign because it says keep the sign of the bigger number. And so the bigger number is 11, it's positive. So you can either write positive 9, or you can just write 9 without the positive sign. Both of them are correct. This one's a little bit better, but if you'd like to write the positive sign right now, that's fine too. Let's try another one. Okay, on this one we have 6 plus negative 1. All right, so I'm going to move the 6 over, and then now I'm going to cover up the 6 and see how I've got a plus negative 1. Hey, this looked like these first 4 problems that we did where they had a plus and a minus together. Remember that the negative wins, so I can take off the disguise. So I can take the parentheses away, and I can also take that positive sign away. So my 6 over here, it doesn't have a sign on the front. Well, when it doesn't, you know that the sign is positive. And so I'm going to put a P here for positive. And then my 1 has a negative in front of it, so I'm going to put an N here for negative. So these are different signs, so I'm going to use my different sign subtract rule. And 6 and 1, if I subtract them, is 5. And then it says, keep the sign of the bigger number. Well, which number is bigger, 6 or 1? 6, yes. And so it's positive, so I can either write plus 5, positive 5, or I can just write 5. And both those are correct, so just 5. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Making sure I covered everything. All right, so this time we've got 3 plus negative 11. So these two have different signs. I'm going to go ahead and separate them. 3 plus negative 11. So I'm going to take the disguise off of the negative 11 because it's got a plus and a minus, and the minus wins, so it's really negative. So now I have a 3, which is positive, and I have an 11, which is negative, and you can see they're different signs, so I'm going to subtract them. And let's see, 11 and 3, if I subtract them, that's going to be 8. And then it says, which number is bigger, 3 or 11? Well, the 11 is bigger, and so I'm going to take the sign from the 11 and move it to the 8, so it's negative 8. Let's take a look at one more. Say that you had a 4, let's put a positive in front of it, and then I think I saw a couple of these in the homework. These were pretty crazy looking. This number right here, plus 4, positive 4, it's just positive. I don't know why they put the plus sign in front. They're just trying to confuse you. And then now I've got plus 3. Okay, this is really confusing. But there's a plus. It doesn't change it. It's still positive. So when there's two pluses in front of the same number, you're okay. It's still positive. So I'm going to take all this disguise off. So this one is positive and this one's positive. It's just 4 and 3. So 4 and 3 is 7. And you can write 7 or you can write positive 7. Okay, let's take a look at numbers that are opposite. Say that you had 5, we'll put a positive in front of it, plus negative 5. Okay, I'm going to separate these two numbers so I can really see them. All right, this one is positive, so I'm going to put a P there. This one is negative because a negative and positive in front of the same number is negative. So this one is really negative. They're the same number, they're opposites. They make 0. And you won't put a positive or a negative sign onto 0. Okay, before my computer times out on me, let's see if I can get one more in. This is a different way to look at working with positive and negative numbers. I don't like this. I don't especially teach this. I've seen it a couple of times, but I'm going to go ahead and show you this last little method for beginners. You could write 6 negative signs. That's what that means. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I made 6 negative signs. And now it says, okay, well, I'm going to make 4 positive signs. So I'm going to go positive, 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 positive. So these two are opposites. They cancel out. They cancel out. They cancel out. They cancel out. So goodbye, 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 goodbye. And what am I left with? 2 negative signs. So it really is, the answer to that really is -2. Different sign subtract, which would be 2. Keep the sign of the bigger number, which is -2. So seen this method a couple of times. It's okay, maybe just start out with if you're having trouble, but I really prefer the rule card. So let me know how you do with that. Thanks.